the power button is just going to be this one, and when you hold it, the green light will come on. And then if by any chance you think that you need the volume up or down, the controls are actually on the
Okay,
microphone.
so let me just do that. So there's on,
Yep, so just hold it, green light's on. So that's good.
off,
Oh, yeah.
on,
Awesome. And volume.
check, check. Check, 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 check. Check,
Nice. That's awesome.
check.
Yeah, so it's nice because some people talk quieter than others.
Yeah.
So you can adjust it on the actual microphone itself.
I'll just turn that off then.
Yep.
That's great. Perfect. So
Thanks.
just,
You know why? You know why I didn't see it? It was translucent.
Yeah. You're looking for the solid big black
I
thing.
know we got a new one, so it's like
That's
nice
great.
and-
So what I'll do, like, I got some words I'm gonna say just to kind of just start the meeting.
Yeah, can we, like,
We're gonna get some time.
so, like, yeah, because you can leave, you're not going to have time to stick around, and,
Unfortunately, I've had this in circle for
no worries.
So what I'm gonna do a nice little introduction. I have some words prepared. And if I ever can, of course, there's some words. It keeps going. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That might work for you.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But why don't we give it 5-10 minutes? I know Ross is outside. It's like 11:22 and in West Media, say 11:35. Yeah. Not what works for you.
You know, it's so funny. It's like, I look for Gary. Like, it's just in the split second, you know, it's not, it's so hard. And my eyes aren't too good. So I looked at that guy first.
Yeah, I guess it's, yeah.
I gotta find. I'm looking for two guys that are here. So it's just, I don't know where they are. Okay,
11:35. Yeah.
I went there the other night. I didn't have my passport or my driver's license. I drove all the way there.
You know that's why you're a big winner. You didn't get in there.
I drove even.
Go to that Gordon Ramsay thing.
What's that?
They're having that Gordon Ramsay thing that's going to be on
Oh, yeah.
that new steakhouse.
What are they serving? A cookie?
I'm good whenever
Did
you're ready.
you have a sandwich or anything? You have some tea?
What-
Did you have some tea?
You don't worry about me. I'm okay. Thank you.
That was my tuna bread.
You don't smell anything. Yeah, but you don't smell anything. Even when my son did this morning, I had some Cheerios and he goes, "What are you eating?" He opens my mouth and smells my mouth. It ripped my mouth open. I was like, "Oh, thanks, Rory." But yeah,
That's your kid.
yeah, 5-year-old. Yeah.
Brandy wants to say some words, so
Yeah.
maybe you can invite her up specifically first because she
Yeah.
might need help with the mic.
Yeah, absolutely. So the only thing I don't like is a wireless mic, so she's gonna have to hold it, but that's fine. I'll just mention to her that she can hold it close to her mouth so it's loud.
And you can
Yeah.
stand up here with her. and
Yeah,
then
not a
everyone
problem.
else can
Absolutely.
nicely please.
Not a problem. Are you ready for me to start now then?
Yeah, I think I just hang on. Yeah. Well, what time is it? It's 11:34. Okay, so
Why don't I just make an announcement that everyone can take a seat if they can, and then we'll be starting in about a minute or two. Is that okay with you, Glenn?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not enough seats. Sorry. Okay, just not enough seats. So if everyone could just, we'd like to start with the celebration of life, and yeah. So, but there's not enough seats, so everyone can't take a seat. We got too many. We probably should have done a bigger room, but that's okay. Because I wanted to be perfect, and it is what it is. So this is
Hello, everyone. We're going to begin soon. I'm not sure if you want to grab a final cup of coffee or bite to eat, but we're going to begin in the next minute or two. Thank you.
Okay. At least they don't.
You want coffee?
No, that's right. They have
Pictures of
Yeah, and Elijah, he wants to get this so he can put it on the screen.
Oh yeah.
So I've given Claire, he had a USB, I've given it to Claire, so she's going to put it on afterwards so she can give it to him.
Yeah.
Okay? This is Mike if you have to talk with him in the streaming, okay? Yeah, they do a good job. They do a good job with
I need to.
You okay?
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay back there? Ross, can you hear me okay, Ross? Okay. Oh. Ross, do you mind taking a seat? Right. Good morning, everyone, and on behalf of the Bailey family, I welcome you all. This day we gather as family and friends with heavy hearts as we come to say our goodbyes. When someone dear to us dies, the ache and shock we experience is not a virus or an infection from which one can easily heal. It's a transformation with which we all must learn to live with. For we are now required to do the unbearable. We must set up a new life and establish a new normal in a world that no longer includes that loved person. I ask that you have faith in yourself, that as difficult as it is to believe at this time, you will not always feel this devastating and intense grief. For our grieving cannot be skirted over, around, or under. We must allow ourselves to go through it in order to heal and come out on the other side. I ask that you be patient with yourself as family and friends. Give yourself the right to cry, to laugh, to celebrate, to grieve, and to retell Gary's story as often as you need and as long as you want to. Always know that there are those who love you and will always be there for you even when you feel alone. May your presence here today be a support to one another, and may you find great strength in the words of comfort we share today as we say our goodbye to a loving son, father, brother, and grandfather. There's no better way to just share someone and tell someone's story than having those closest to them speak. And at this time, I'd like to invite Gary's mother, Jill, to come forward. Jill?
Mom? Mom? She needs to hear me.
First of all, I'd like to thank this time and coming today. I know Gary would have loved this. And I'm sure wherever he is, he's looking down at everyone and saying, please enjoy your life and your family, because it goes so fast. Gary was the sweetest man and child that I think I will always remember. We came to Canada when he was 9 months old, and we stayed with Karen, who's sitting there, his mother, who she was wonderful to us. We didn't know anyone else here. And Gary was such a happy baby. As somebody once said, you could sit him on an iceberg and he'd be happy. He was not selfish, but kind. The couple of things I remember about Gary was we took him to Ambleside Park, and he had one toy that he absolutely loved. But a little boy with a lot of toys of his own wanted that toy, and Gary gave it to him. When he was 3, we went back to England. I took him through the Panama Canal and to a very heartbroken mother and a very doting sister in England. When we were ready to get off the ship, the captain took me aside and said, I've met all kinds of children on my ship, but I've never met one like Gary, who is so happy all the time, so polite and so kind. He said, I hope he will be able to enjoy his life and will not be stepped on by some of the people that won't be as soft as Gary seems to be. I will miss him very much, but I've got to remember that I'm lucky enough to have 2 other beautiful sons who I also adore, but are quite different to Gary. I used to really let him rattle on at him, say, clean up your boat or do this, and he'd listen to me patiently. He'd say, okay, and then he'd say, I love you, Mumsy. Didn't matter what I seemed to say to him. Lastly, I would like to thank everyone, Chloe, that really did a lot of work, and Ross, who has been so generous, everyone else that had helped to do this. I'll miss you, Mumsy, he used to call me. Dear God, be good to him. The sea is so large, and his boat was so small.
Rossi? Ross, do you want to say something?
Like right now?
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Here you go. Okay.
It's my spiritual advisor. Anyways. So I kind of wrote some stuff out, but I have a lot to say.
Just for the live stream.
So I have a lot to say, but I've been drunk for the last 50 years, so I don't remember Gary. So, I'd like to really thank my parents, both of them, for raising us 3 kids into this world and teaching us all our skills that Gary, myself, and Glenn moved on from. We all developed different different paths, right, in our life cycle, and for the most part it worked out until something tragic or catastrophic happens, which are unforeseen. But my parents gave me the memories of Gary, and I wouldn't even be standing here if it wasn't for Gary. Gary's the one that wanted another playmate, and so I guess Mom and Dad went out and got drunk or whatever they did, and here I am. So it's Gary because I'm here. I have so many memories of him throughout my life of fun, silly things, you know. He was the one that got mad at me. He was the one that I tried to grow my hair as long as him, but I lost by 2 feet because my brother used to have hair down to his spine. He taught me about pain. I remember seeing him run in Penticton and breaking his toe on a root. And whenever I walk by a tree to this day, I always look for the roots because I didn't want that pain. So, you know, his music, right? He loved music as a kid, and I actually didn't like music because I had to listen to it all the time. So I'm not really, if anyone ever gets in a car with me, I always turn the music down. And that's kind of something that was created from Gary. This is blank. I'm not really reading this. Gary also, you know, all my life, he fixed everything when I was a kid. Everything in our house was fixed by Gary, electronic or anything. And to this day, I still don't even know how to screw in a light bulb because of him. And anyone brings up electricity to me and I go, that's my brother from England that, you know, he did everything for us. And Glenn, right? We didn't, it was like, all we had to do was adjust the rabbit ears, and electronics and everything have changed, obviously, since. So, yeah, it's, you know, I've lost other than my mom and dad, I've lost somebody that's been in my life, and it's not just another funeral for me. It's my blood that's bleeding. So, I learned. I was away, and when this all happened, and now I discovered he left me something else. I know when I cry from the right eye. So, but beyond that, Gary was never selfish, never motivated by money, driven by greed. He did so many kind acts of generosity, and I'm still hearing him today of things he's done that are just not just for his kids, but even for my kids. He did some things unknowingly and brought to my attention. So all Gary wanted was fresh food. Didn't want frozen food, wanted fresh food. He had no expectations. He didn't bother anybody. There was never any, there was one small conflict, but other than that, Gary never got in anyone's face. It was a polite, and even Glenn and I were saying he's like nicer than us. So, I got to spend the last 4 years with Gary as he kind of moved down to our place, and so yeah, and there's quite a few people here that know Gary, and they know the real Gary of what a nice person he was. So I guess as we all get older, and change, and our next, Gary loved his kids. And not just his kids, all kids, right? He loved Lily, and he was looking so forward to Christmas. The Christmas that I guess never came. I got a lot to say, but anyways, he's always going to be in my heart and soul and whatever body parts I've got. But Gary's plaque will be inside my body, and I'll remember, it's he's been there for us all our life, and hopefully I'll be with him and one day, and hopefully I'll see my dad soon. And yeah, I don't know.
Thanks, Russ.
That's about it. Can I shut up now?
Yeah, ChatGPT says you have to be relatively quick.
No, this wasn't generated by AI. I thought about it. I didn't even look at it.
I'm gonna be.
Anyways,
I'll
thank
say
you,
something.
everybody, and I appreciate everybody that has shown up, right? And it's great to see Jeff, Marty, and people that have also been in our lives, not permanent, but through the beginning. Anyways.
Thanks, Russ. Thanks. I'm going to talk briefly next about my older brother, and first of all, I just want to thank. Oh. Test. Check. Hello. Battery dead? Check. Sorry about that. Yeah, to continue on what Ross said, there's just so much love in the room for Gary. Gary was the most loving big brother throughout our lives. He was always there. Actually, I always looked at Gary and thought that he was like my second mom, because he was always there for me when we were growing up, and he was shipped off, but he went to England, and he had a love for music, and he went over to England, and he started a recording company, and then his big brother over in England was Nick, and Nick fell in love with music and became a famous rock star in England. And he's a very important part of our family that's come all the way from England to join us today. So thanks, Nick, for that. Going back to Gary, yeah, he was like our third brother, Ross said. He was always there. He'd fix anything for us. He was so good and technical. And I worked with Gary for 40 years, and we had so many incredible times together. A lot of wins, a lot of real success, and some failures. We had some things that we had to overcome. But one of the things I just want to say about Gary is that he was like our second mom, always watching over us, but he took so much shit for us. Ross and I, he wanted a baby brother, and he got one, but then accidentally he got two. So I was an accident. Ross and I are 1 year apart, and basically he got two brothers, but he didn't get two boys. He got two energy balls that were total rascals. And there's so many stories. Ross mentioned when he was chasing us around trying to put suntan cream on us in Penticton, and he broke his toe chasing us in the parking lot. Another time, just so many fun memories I have, but Ross and I were always up to something, and one of the rituals, I don't know if you ever had dinner at our house, but it's at my mom and dad's house, is you gotta sit up, you can't get up from the table, you gotta have your manners and correctly. And Ross and I, before we have dinner every day, we'd open up the window. And we'd open up the window because we didn't like some vegetables on our plate, and we couldn't have any dessert unless we ate all our vegetables. So I always remember this one time, you remember us. So we come in our meal, Mom and Dad's, they get up from the table for a bit because they're doing something, and Ross and I would immediately pick up our Brussels sprouts and throw them out the window. Anyways, that was all fun until I think I hit the window or Ross hit the window, and there's this Brussels sprout slowly moving down the window. Mom and Dad come back, and sure enough, Ross and I get up from the table, and we're finished our dinner. We've had our dessert. Then we hear my dad yell, "Gary, what's this Brussels sprout doing on the window?" So. There's just so many fond memories that I have of Gary, and we miss him so much. He loved his two boys, and I'm so happy that those two boys are just incredible parts of our family. I want to thank all the love in the room. I want to thank our family. We have an amazing family, and all the kindness that they've shown in helping my mom out through this tough time and helping the boys out. The support that we get from each other has just been amazing. So, love you, Gary, and we'll miss you dearly. Would you like to come up, Nick, and say something? Come on. Then Keegan, if you'd like to come up, please, after that. Thank you.
Hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Nick, and I was Gary's first cousin, or little brother, the fourth of them. Do you need the mics? Mics on. I just would like to start with a message from my parents, who loved Gary deeply. And very sad that they couldn't be here, and they wanted me to make sure he was remembered for his kindness and his gentleness. Sorry, I'm really emotional. I don't really get emotional very often. But Gary was a really, really important part of my life. He came to live in our family home in England when I was 11. Growing up as an only child, he took the place of my older brother, as have Ross and Glenn over the years. He mentored me and introduced me to music, as Glenn said earlier on. When I was 11 years old, he took me to my first recording studio. He was a record producer called Tin Pan Alley, which was famous for all the big hits in the 60s and 70s. and got me singing on a record when I was 11 years old. What I was reminded at the burial, he gave me my first rock album, which was Led Zeppelin 4, which featured that song, Stairway to Heaven. He gave me my first bass guitar and taught me how to play. And it was his bass guitar. And I was the only kid in the neighborhood who had a bass guitar. So I was playing bass in all the local bands and eventually started a band of my own, which Gary mentored me and taught me to be a musician. He used to drive me around selflessly with all my equipment and my band's equipment in the back of my dad's van, help us set up our equipment, would do the sound. And as Glenn said, I went on to have a career in music. And I think if it wasn't for Gary, that never would have happened. Excuse me. And I never got to tell him. And thanks, Gary.
Keegan? If anyone else like to come up and say anything? Shelley?
Gary was one of my best friends in the world. We met in 2020. I started off as his neighbor, and we became really good friends. And Gary was the kindest person in the world. Jennifer, our other neighbor at the time, we were all single, and every Valentine's Day, Gary would come over with a bottle of wine and chocolate-covered strawberries to celebrate with us, because he probably felt sorry for us, I guess, right? And it's just, we went from being neighbors and good friends to family. We planned on buying a place together, but that didn't work out exactly. So we rented a place and lived together for about 2 years and have some of the craziest memories ever. Like, I'm coming home from work one night, and Quinn calls me, Shelley, hurry, Dad lit himself on fire. And I'm like, what? And like, I'm like, I walk in the house and like, he lit himself on fire. Like, and I'm like, are you serious? And Quinn at the time had a girlfriend, and I guess they came out of the room, and Gary's literally on fire, so he's whipping his pants off. The rug's on fire, so he threw it over the patio, almost on the truck, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's not funny, because he was burnt pretty badly, but he did recover. And I'm just thinking, Gary, I feel like he was like a cat, because he had so many, he was so accident prone. Like, he was in Mexico, I think he got hit by a car, what was it? Or mugged, or I don't know, something. Mugged. It's always, and I'm like, just like, and then recently it was like his e-bike. I'm like, every time I talk to him, I'm like, I think I broke a rib. I fell off my e-bike. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm like, oh no, that's not good. But Gary was, every Christmas, without fail, I'd get an orchid delivered from West Van Forest. And I think that was just the kindest thing. He was an adventurer. He loved his rec beach, and he loved his boys more than anything. And you guys basically are almost like my boys, kind of, in a way. It's kind of weird, but I know I'm Auntie Shelley, but I was like, I feel like I remember Keegan in his Matrix days with his long trench coat and his big boots and the top hat and long hair. And yeah, it was like, that was always like a interesting thing. But, and then I remember getting a knock on the door one night at like 2 or something. And who was it? Quinn, was it you? And your mom came over, like Leslie Ann came over. It was like a big ordeal. I can't remember exactly, but I feel like I've been involved with you guys growing. I've watched you growing up, and I'm like, your dad's so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I can't believe what beautiful young men you've turned into. And Keegan, with your beautiful daughter. Your dad was so looking forward to coming to see you at Christmas, and I don't remember. Oh, yeah, wait, that was like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I always get the calls when something was happening in your house. So it's like, I'm like, yeah, I remember that too. lots of memories, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, he was so proud of you. He was so looking forward to spending Christmas in Calgary. And other moments to cherish was with his mom and on the trips they went on. The last one was a cruise, I think. And he sent me pictures, and it was amazing. He had the best time. And he was the kindest person in the world, generous, selfless. And he's my Garinator. I love him so much. And I know he's at peace, so it's good. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Would anyone else like to come up? I know Gary's got, he's got Kathy, Rob, Marty, Pete, Fraser, and Jeff here, all from his high school and or elementary school. He's known these people his whole life. So if any of you guys like to come up and share a memory of Gary, we'd love to hear you. Jeff, come on up. We lost the funeral director. He had to go to another funeral. So I'm stepping in.
Do I get to sing? Hi, everybody. I met Gary when I was about 8 years old. He was the new kid on the block. I heard about this kid, this cool new kid who had come into our neighborhood. So he immediately fit into our little group of devils. And we hit it off. We got along really well. I spent a lot of time at the Bailey household. Gary taught me how to clean up a room. He wasn't allowed to, I'd go to his house and he wasn't allowed to go out. Jill would say, Gary, you got to clean up your room before you could go out. And 2 minutes later, room was clean. How the heck did you do that? He opens his closet. He goes, there it is, stacked this high with his clothes and stuff and everything else. But we were out the door and riding our bikes around the neighborhood. Gabriel and I were masters of pyrotechnics. We made lots of things that we shouldn't make, like underwater detonating firecrackers and all kinds of incredible times. Gary had a very mischievous side, which no one seems to have addressed at this point. But as time went on, Gary got a driver's license, and Jill had a Triumph GT6 Plus, which he had no idea how that car was being driven, I assure you. I remember Gary, he wanted to get my attention once, so he's driving down Taylor Way and screaming up to the light, and I'm going, there's no way he's gonna stop. He's gonna go into oncoming traffic, and on go the brakes, down go the downshift, and boom, stop like that. And he's looking at me laughing, and just thought it was hilarious as I turned ghostly white. Gary was the master of the Bailey lane change, which is change lanes, then signal, then look. So that was, so he did that for many years. One of the fond memories I have of Gary, he was a very tolerant guy. I would be, hanging around with him at the house, always felt welcome. I was envious of Gary's girlfriends because, after the age of 16 or so, he had girlfriends and I didn't. And I was often the third wheel. And I used to go to Gabriel, I knew I was going to, I went there one day to, get Gary and go out and do something. And so I knock on the door, no answer. I know he's home. I just figure he's home. So I go round the house, nobody there. Look in the windows, nobody there. I look in the basement window, and across the room I can see, well, he's in bed. I can see the covers on the couch, and he's banging on the window. And then I noticed the covers are moving, so I go, oh yeah, well, he's definitely there. And then I realized he wasn't alone. So I figured at that point in my naivety that I should probably leave him alone. But yeah, as was mentioned, Gary was an extremely generous guy. My wife and I moved to Quebec a few years ago, and at Christmas time, we would get a bouquet of flowers, totally out of the blue. And it was, unsigned. So we had to track it down and figure out who they came from, and it was Gary. So, you know, we'd call him up and really sorry I didn't get to spend more time with him in later years, but things change and people move on, but we always kept in touch. So, always miss him, have incredibly fantastic memories of Gary and the Bailey household growing up. So, yeah, I, like everyone else, will miss Gary. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. That GT6 is pretty funny because no one was allowed to drive it, but we all drove it more than my mom and dad did, literally. But I did the worst. I'm so sorry, Mom. Yeah, I took it out when I was like 14, and I accidentally had an accident, and that was a big one. Who else would like to come up and just say a quick word? Anyone else wants to come up and say a quick word? You do? Okay, well, I'll just say, unfortunately, Mark had to leave. There is some special people in the room that have come here I haven't seen for a long time. Wayne, thanks for coming out. Karen, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Nick, thanks for coming all the way from England. All Gary's friends that are here. My mom, my mother-in-law and father-in-law, my family, and Keegan and Quinn and every one of our family. We have such an incredible family, and it's so tragic what happened to Gary. He had so much goodness in him, and we'll miss him so dearly. And I guess now, Ross, you're my big brother. You're the oldest brother. So, anyways, love you all a lot. Thanks for coming out. Please stay around, have a few drinks, have some more to eat, and yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.